Guys, take me back, and all of us, to how it started. Because Frank had the morning show.
Yeah.
Mike, you were the midday guy.
I was the midday guy. Carter was in the afternoon.
Carter did the afternoons.
Right. And by the way, an acknowledgement right here, and I'm glad he's here. Where's Ron Fell? Ron's here.
Ron
Stand
Fell.
up for a second.
Our program director at that time.
Ron Fell was the conceiver of Good Times Radio. He was our program director, and he was my favorite of all time. I mean, he goes into the Hall of Fame as program directors. But he's the guy that started it all. Thank you.
And we had a lot of program directors.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, you guys didn't stay too long, did you?
Well, anyway, you take it from there. Tell them how it got started.
I was midday. Carter was in the afternoons, and I started at 10. We were at the Fox Plaza, and I would come in about 9 o'clock, and I was a bachelor, so I had my cornflakes and milk, and that was my breakfast, and I would sit in with Frank.
And bug me.
And I'd bring my cool Filter Kings, and you'd
It was the last hour of my show.
Yeah.
It was my show.
It's his show, and I would just kind of bug him.
I think he said bug him. I don't think he said kind of bug him.
I know. Yeah, I did.
And Ron Fell, the program director, thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and he liked it. He liked it, and it kind of became an hour in itself, just individual and a bridge between the two of us. And then actually I had an opportunity afterwards, because the Venetian Room at the Fairmont Hotel was going on, to interview a whole raft of people and at that time, remember, Ron, program directors didn't mind the spoken word, so you could interview in depth, and that was great fun. But my most favorite time was fooling around with Frank, and it stayed that way till 1979.
Yeah, but there's something he's left out, and that is that I used to, before I had Mike as a partner, I used to actually recruit listeners who would call me on the phone and play character voices. We had one woman that some mutual friends here know very well, who used to call, and she was Wanda Lust of the Horse Around Ranch. Yeah. And so she pretended to be this madam up at a Horse Around Ranch up in Napa. And she played a character role with me, and I used to talk to her first off the air, and I'd say, hey, that's pretty funny, do that on the air. So I had that character, I had other characters. There was a doctor in Sacramento who used to call, and he was Luther Ferd, and I'd audition him off the air quietly, think he was funny, and say, let's do it on the air. Then one day I get a call, and it's a fella I'd never heard of before, and his name was Tom Haggerty. And he owned the Ace Calendar Company. And we're into this thing, and then I realized, wait a minute, that's Mike.
Yeah.
He's calling me from home. So anyway, that was the first character voice he ever did. I didn't know he did character voices.
Well, I didn't either. But I was hungover, and no, I really wasn't.
Have you heard from Tom Haggerty in recent years?
Well, I have, as a matter of fact. And if you look up at the calendar here, you can see Tom Haggerty. Well, that's me. Now I'm standing right next to that model. And you'll notice I'm not looking down at her. I'm looking right at her. That, in fact, was my father.
That's right.
That was Tom Haggerty.
We needed somebody when Ace Calendar Company was then going to, as the story evolves, now going to make an annual calendar for Frank and Mike in KNBR, and we needed somebody to play the role of Tom Haggerty, who then became a regular character. So we enlisted Mike's father.
And look who's in this room from that picture. Rosie Allen.
Yeah.
Rosie, where are you? Yeah.
Look at Jane Morrison there sleeping in the
Jane
first
Morrison.
row. I see Hap Harper.
Yeah. Gene DiCardo from our newsroom.
I see Ron Fell on the upper left
at the top. And at that time, the general manager was Heber Smith.
Oh, here's one for you. You see the calendar picture on the right. You see the guy sweeping in the white? His name is Richard Scher. He used to be in our newsroom. And Richard Scher went to Baltimore and got a morning TV show. And his partner on the show worked out pretty well with him. Then she left and went on to other things. Her name was Oprah Winfrey.
And Kim, is that you?
With the bow in the hair? Yeah.
The bow in the hair, is that you?
It's about the right size.
Well, I think that was supposed to be lovely little Linda Spindlemeyer,
Oh, I see.
who had that thing about Barry Manilow. Go ahead, Stan.
Well, no, I mean, were there boundaries to what you guys did? It seems, in the retelling, gosh, it sounds like a lot of fun, and nothing but fun.
That's exactly what it was. I had the pleasure of working, if you can call it that, with a guy whose only job was to get up early in the morning and make his best friend laugh. And he succeeded.
Well, it was just too good a time. It was easy to do. And the one great thing about, I think, what we had is we didn't have to really be super funny. We didn't really have to be super witty or super clever. I think, what was it? My daughter one time said, a lot of people will sometimes not hear what you have to say, and a lot of times they will ignore what you do for them, but they will never forget how you make them feel. And I think that was the key to what we were doing, was we made people feel good. And I think making them feel good in the morning was particularly important.
Strangely enough, as much as we bickered between each other, I think people had the general idea that we liked each other. And that we were there and kind of having a good time, and everybody was welcome to eavesdrop on it. I think that's the way it worked.
Yeah.
You guys did play a few practical jokes on each other.
Oh,
we did.
I mean, most notable, the marching band in Maui story is probably in the all-time practical joke Hall of Fame.
I got married, and Marianne and I went off to Frank's condo for a week in Maui as a honeymoon, and
He never paid the rent then.
and what we didn't know was the first morning, about 7:15, we heard a band playing "California, Here I Come," and we got up, and it was misting, and I looked outside, and there was the Maui High School marching band. Frank had arranged to donate to their fund if they would come over and serenade us. It was the only California song they knew, so they kept playing it over and over and over again. And the neighborhood was not a tourist neighborhood. There were a lot of people who lived there year-round, and they weren't very happy. And it was raining, so we brought them all inside. And, when you've got a horn section of Samoans who check in at about 325 pounds each, you got a tight living room.
Sure, yeah. The bass trombone played like that is going to be something special.
But it's not the worst ever. His classic,
You're not going to talk about the welcome I gave you?
my welcome home.
Yeah, welcome home with all the ladies?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mike played a lot of gags on me, and I used to always try to get back at him, and I'd look forward to an opportunity, and it all started one day, years ago, when, of all things, Mike stuck a whistle up my exhaust pipe.
You mean the one on your car?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the way it all started.
Well, I told you I probed.
Yeah. And today it still accounts for his wheezing every once in a while.
But it was Panic City having that removed at a gas station. But anyway, one of my favorite things,
I didn't do that, by the way.
Well, your buddy did.
My buddy did.
Yes, I know that. And one of my favorite ways to get back at him was when he'd be away, I'd try to figure a way to surprise him when he came back from vacation. So I knew he had gone to the islands. This is before he married Marianne. He had gone to the islands on vacation for a week, and I knew he had taken a very good-looking local entertainer with him.
Angie. I never told him.
So I went on the air and I said, listen, everybody, Mike's coming in here, Sunday night flight, 6 o'clock, Northwest Airlines, SFO. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to get some of you women out there to pretend to be pregnant. Stick
They didn't have to pretend to be.
Stick pillows in there and all that sort of thing, and be willing to come to San Francisco Airport, 6 o'clock Sunday, Northwest Airlines, and meet me there. And make up signs. Mike, you promised me. Or Mike, why did you leave me? Or anything you can use your imagination.
Well, they had little kids that had T-shirts.
Oh, and if you have kids, bring them along.
That T-shirt said, "I'm Mike's number 1, I'm Mike's number 2."
So I think that was half the fun of a lot of the things that we did, including the marching band thing and so on, because we did them on the air. We actually let people participate in what we were doing. And these people would call and they would volunteer. So there it is. We're at the airport. Here are all the women. They're meeting me out in front there. And in these days, you could go right to the, unloading area. You didn't have to security or anything. So I'm standing out there with about 24 women and all their little kids carrying their signs, and the little kids saying, "Daddy, welcome home." And now, just walking from the front of the airport to where he's going to get off the plane, I attract another crowd. They all say, "What in the heck is this?" And they follow us to see what's going to happen. So when Mike comes off the plane with his girlfriend.
Oh, by this time, we're not going.
Well, there was a mob there. And I looked at Mike in the distance, and I saw his face. And I knew...
Pretty funny, huh?
Oh.
And
I knew it was all worthwhile.
And they followed us all the way to baggage claim. And I went to grab her bag, and she said, "I'll get it."
She disappeared.
I never saw her again. I hope she has a wonderful career.
Anyway, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
We saw you putting on the Ritz. We saw you singing Satisfaction. Was there anything you guys wouldn't do?
Well,
Jay, had you no shame?
Well, first of all, I think this is the perfect time to say that
Isabel.
I think at that time, as a radio station, we were that decade's social media.
Yeah.
And I say that in this context. Just like Facebook makes you interact, KNBR interacted. You got really involved with the listeners. And our Mark Zuckerberg was Isabel Lemon.
Isabel Lemon.
Yeah. And
actually, Isabel, the beauty of it was an idea could come out on the air, sometimes very spontaneously. And Isabel would come running down the hall saying, "You're going to have a parade? Great! I'll put it together." And the next thing you know, we have a parade, and we have 16 marching bands and 100,000 people watching us come down Main Street in Pleasanton. But it was all put together by Isabel. The rock scene. I think we casually said something on the air once. It'd be great to be a rock star for a day. And have people cheering you and, dress in some ridiculous costume. That's the way that started.
The Booty Brothers.
We became the Booty Brothers.
That was our debut retirement concert.
Right. One time only. And we filled Fort Mason over here, one of those big indoor piers at Fort Mason, where we had that, with Big Bang Beat as our band. Yeah. And we had volunteers. We prepared in advance on the air. We said, "Okay, we're going to have the thing on Saturday. You're going to be there, right to our audience. Now we need some volunteers because we need the real diehard, what would you call them, the fans?
Groupies.
Groupies. Oh, yeah, we had official groupies.
You got to have groupies if you're going to be a band.
We said, we had official translators. Remember,
if you're groupies, you get to stand up front. Oh, we had all these calls want to be groupies. Then we said, now, if we're going to have this kind of thing, we need security. So we didn't hire. We asked for volunteers to be our security. We told them to bring little transistor radios with an earplug. And they were between us and the groupies down below on the stage. Yeah. So that's the way it happened.
Actually, everything went very, very well until by that time Amanda and Kelly were maybe 14 and 12. And after they saw me doing what I did, it took a month of repair job with them.
So there's going to be some therapy involved there.
Oh, yeah. So, Dad.
You guys have resisted the urge, though, for a comeback tour so far.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You got that right. You got that right.
That means staying on a stage for 45 minutes.
Sure.
No, at our age, there have to be intermissions.
You can do sure.
Plus, my booty
that's why you got to be
disappeared.
very quick with this crowd.
My booty's no longer there, so it's...
You had Don Nelson and Bob Brenly.
Yeah.
Didn't Brenly get thrown off because he said stuff the Giants were tired of him saying or something? Yet Dwayne Kuiper. You launched some significant careers.
Oh, Mike Krukow.
Mike Krukow.
Dwayne Kuiper,
John Madden spent a lot of time with you.
Dwayne Kuiper, we had the Dwayne Kuiper Memorial Home Run Countdown.
Sure.
Yeah, that's right.
He won a home run for his whole career.
Yeah,
Right. And every morning we'd say, got one?
Hey, by the way, Don Nelson, I just saw a couple of weeks ago in Maui. He's doing great, and we played golf together, had dinner. Believe it or not, he even said, I might be interested in going back to the NBA. I said, don't.
One quick side question. How did you have a dump button, or how did you manage to get through all those years with Nelly without an F-bomb?
No problem. In fact, Nelly is still talking. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago right after golf. We're having a beer, and Nelly was explaining to somebody else in our golf group that he used to do a radio show in San Francisco with these two guys, Frank and Mike, blah, blah, blah. And he says, I'll never forget any time Mike asked a question, I would say with a pause, that is the dumbest question I've ever heard. And Nelly said he had more fun with that than anything else he ever did in radio.
Well, it was an interesting time because basically, I guess I just don't have a lot of, well, KCBS advertises the T Factor.
Do we? Oh, yeah. If it has to do with male enhancement, we're going to be running that.
Yeah, and I guess I've got low testosterone. Yeah. So I'm not much of a sports fan. I like championship games and something like that. But other than that, I really don't get deep into it. That's Frank's business. So when it came time for me to have to ask a question,
I'd say, come on.
I didn't have one.
Yeah.
I didn't have one.
But Nelly loved it when you asked a question, because no matter what it was, we all knew what he was going to say, but it was funny.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't the only one who would say a stupid question.
But you were an old sportscaster.
Yeah, right. That was my dream when I was a kid. I wanted to be a sportscaster. I wanted to do the Rose Bowl, coast to coast and so on. That was all my dream. I never made it. Instead, I got stuck with Mike.
and there's a story, you two can confirm this, that the way you first came across each other was you helped hook up an interview with a San Francisco Giant for a Cub reporter named Mike Cleary.
Yeah, I'll start it and then Frank can finish it.
Go ahead.
I was doing a teenage public affairs show called Tempo on Channel 5 when it was on Van Ness. Frank was doing sports on Channel 5 at the time. And I was going to take a vacation and go down to the spring training area. It was going to be in Scottsdale. And they said, well, see if you can get some extra film from Frank, who will be there, and get an interview with a Giant, and we can play it on the teen show. And it was the teen show, by the way, because it was in the late 60s. I had the Grateful Dead. I had all the Fillmore and Avalon musicians come through this TV show. So it was really a lot of fun. Now I get down there.
Well, he gets down there. I had never met him. They just simply said, hey, by the way, there's a guy named Mike Cleary. He does a teenage show, and he's going to come by. Well, after you finish all your Giant interviews with the various players, this is Willie Mays, McCovey, Cepeda. This is that era back in the 60s. Save some film, let Mike do something. I said, okay. So I do all my interviews, and now this guy comes over, and he says, hi, I'm Mike Cleary.
I didn't say it like that.
I do the teenage show.
I didn't. I came up and I said, I listened to Don Sherwood.
So I said, okay, fine. Here's the cameraman. He's got some film. Let me get somebody for you. So I go get a ball player for him. And I just tell the ball player, hey, interview, Send him over there.
Well, he did it too,
And then tell him what happened.
He gave me the only San Francisco Giant at the time who did not speak English.
The beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Yes, that's right.
And I believe I took you to dinner that night.
Yes,
and
you
I
did.
drove you to the airport.
Yes, you did. You did. You did. You were very kind.
And this was at least 2 years before coming to KNBR.
Yeah.
So he went home. I remember you told me, you said you told
I felt
Mary,
guilty.
You told Mary that, said, this guy did an awful thing to this guy. And he was still nice to me. I wonder what he wants.
I know.
It's the one not nice thing Frank ever did. Guys, I'm getting the wrap.
Yep.
From Peter Cleveland. When Peter gives me the wrap, it's time to wrap. But I should give each of. Well, no, I mean somebody's got to be the heavy, Peter, and that's your role here today. I've called you out. It's
Besides,
a rare opportunity.
we all have to go to the men's room. You know that.
All right.
It's an older crowd, and by the way, that prostate stuff that we sell on KCBS really works. So,
Well, that's how you've managed.
damn straight.
So, how many people from KNBR? So, just whatever the relationship. Jerry Otteson. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Jerry, I just saw
All
earlier.
right. If any of you don't have anything to do this afternoon, we're going to go to the bar, so we could have a little reunion.
Yeah,
If you
come
want
on
to just
over.
wander by.
Particularly the old KNBR crowd and everything. I mean, even if you're working for other stations now, which I know most of you are.
There aren't that many, actually, Frank. They're still working.
And the nice thing about this crowd, no cell phones went off.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see one person looking down at their crotch checking text.
No, but I see them squirming, so we better
That's
wrap
it.
this up.
Frank and Mike together again. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
It's been
Thank you.
tremendous.